Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 49. I'm Josh Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Jason Leskiw, Preps reporter. We're going to talk a lot about football today. We got Week 8 coming up, a lot of big games with playoff stakes, another big game without any playoff stakes, but a big one for Longview fans nonetheless. And just a whole bunch of football stuff. And then at the end of the interview, we'll get into some soccer with a couple RA Long soccer players. Remind me who you brought in again?
Kelsey, Bern, and Maddie Wolff from RA Long. Yeah.
So Kelsey, Bern, and Maddie Wolff, obviously very talented players out there for the Jills. What did you guys talk about?
Well, we talked about the way the season's gone, the ups and downs, and also being a senior and what that's meant for the season.
And speaking of Civil War, they got a big one on Tuesday coming up in that Civil War matchup. There was an epic game last time that you got to see. What do you expect from both those teams, both Mark Morris and RA Long Soccer, the last couple of weeks as they finish this thing out?
I expect a good game. The first time around, it was a good game. Went into overtime. The goal that tied it came in about the 72nd minute. And it was a heck of a kick, and so I expect more of the same. RA Long, the record, I feel like and they feel like, and I think anybody who's watched it play would tell you it's not indicative of the talent and ability of the team. There's, I believe it's 5 games that they've lost by 1 goal. So,
Yeah, and Mark Morris has really impressed me this season. They have just done a tremendous job, and hats off to Eric Maxey and his group. They beat Ridgefield on Tuesday, and I didn't see that one coming. I tell you, we were slated to cover their Saturday game, and then obviously next Tuesday's game, and we're like, we don't need to cover them, 3 times in the course of a week. But now I'm going, man, I should have stopped by that game on Tuesday at Northlake, because I just didn't expect that. But they got a big one against River, and then RA Long. Mark Morris could really make a statement the last couple weeks to finish this thing out. Of course, as we're talking about Civil War and Longview teams, let's get into Civil War football. The big one this week, both teams are out of the playoff hunt. The game got shifted back to Week 8. So while, the last couple of years in Week 3, maybe most teams would think, or most people would think, they're not really in the playoff hunt in the first place. It certainly takes any equation out of the fact once it's in Week 8. Yeah. And you had Mark Morris eliminated against Washougal last week. Obviously, if a couple plays go differently in that one, we're talking about a much different ball game going into Week 8. But fact of the matter is, there's not a whole lot at stake other than pride. Now, the fans are going to show up. Players are going to always compete hard in the Civil War. But, this paper has had the headline before, Civil Snore. This game, hasn't been very competitive for a better part of most of this is the 72nd meeting, and I would say most of the years it's not really that competitive. There have been moments, the 90s and some of the 80s, and you even look back at the 60s, there was actually some really good football games in there. But for the most part, in recent memory,
it's like the AFC East.
Yeah, so, and what's interesting, it's been different teams dominating too. So you had the early 2000s, you had Mark Morris, now you have RA Long, and now maybe it goes back to Morris this year. Yeah. You talk to some of the coaches and stuff, where should Civil War be? It used to be Week 9. It was Week 3 a couple of years. People were real upset about the Week 3 thing, but is that the best spot for it?
I know that the players and the fans feel one way about it. My thing is, hey, it's a game on the schedule. It's not the team you want to play towards the end of the season. I feel like is probably Hawkinson or Woodlands. Obviously made that climb over the last couple of years, and I want to play the best teams towards the end of the season, especially if I'm a contender, just to be more prepared for the postseason. Obviously, the postseason for these two teams, like you said, isn't a reality this year. But as far as to me, to an out of towner, doesn't matter. It's my thing.
Yeah, there is something, and I don't think you were you at the Civil War last year, I guess. There is just something different about it. A couple of years ago they had a really nice competitive game. Now it's between an 0-9 team and a 1-8 team, but we didn't know that at week 3. And that's why I kind of advocate it for early in the season. The game, no matter what, is going to get people to turn out. It's going to get the juices flowing, wherever it is. I would rather see it earlier just to have at least the feeling there's more at stake. And kids are healthier, all of those things. And that game can be a launching pad to the rest of the season. If you win that one, you can go, hey, maybe we can pull off a couple wins here, just riding that momentum. I like it earlier. I know people are upset when it moved earlier. Like, it should be in week 9. It should be that last game. But, you get good turnout and good vibes from, a Mark Morris Kelso game, too, and that's week 1. So I liked it earlier in the season, just with the way both programs are, where they are right now. There's a higher likelihood there's more at stake early in the season, or at least the illusion of more at stake too.
They're right.
So I like it early, but you have a point too. It doesn't really matter when they play because it's going to be an intense game anyway. You're going to have packed house. You're going to have everybody kind of jazzed up about it. So
I feel like if it has to matter, as far as the standings go, week 5 is probably a good spot for it.
That's a good idea.
Nobody's eliminated yet,
right?
And so, and it's while that it's another game part it is factored in. It's it's guaranteed to be meaningful, and it's late enough into the season to where there's maybe some theatrics with it. So
and the interesting thing about it being week 8 this year. Yeah, Mark Morris was eliminated last week, but they still have they still have a lot of motivation to play this week, so it does kind of extend that season a little bit, so there is that benefit to being week 8 is Mark Morris is eliminated, but it's not like they're like, let's, get the youngsters some play time and call it a day, the kids really want to win this one. There's been, trash talking on social media since week 1. So that's just kind of the way it is. And the funny thing about it is we like to make it out to be this, a big rivalry. I think it's more so for the parents and the kids. All the kids are friends, right? So
they've all played, youth ball together,
right.
Other sports, baseball, so.
Right. So I think it's all in good fun as far as the kids go. I think it can be a little heated between the parents. But the way the programs have gone, I just think the Civil War in basketball is such a bigger deal at this stage in time. Just the way the programs have kind of gone over the last decade or so.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing like a Civil War basketball game, but that's because Mark Morris is consistently league title, and even though they dominated that series for so long, there was always that can Ari Long finally win, and when they did, it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It was there was that, but it'll be interesting. Who do you have winning that one?
The football game?
Yeah, Mark
Morris. I think it's kind of going to be last year's game, but flipped on its head.
Yeah, so that'll end. If it does play out the way Jason thinks, that'll end a 4-game Ari Long win streak in the series. So it's interesting. There's been some notable moments in the history, including a double forfeit. Couple ties early on, including a 0-0 tie back in the 60s.
Right.
I can't imagine being at that game. I'll have to go back into our archives in our library to actually read the gamer from that. Because, 0-0?
Yeah, that's hard to do. That's hard to do.
That might sum up the rivalry in recent years.
That's what I was thinking. No, I was thinking the double forfeit's better. A better metaphor.
Across the river, of course, we have, as far as impact on the postseason goes, a much bigger game. Mountain View versus Kelso. Yeah. As Steve Amrine says, it's homecoming. It's a league title. It's all of it wrapped in one. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal for Kelso. It's I think it'll be a good game. I think Mountain View is crazy talented. So you have Mountain View at number 6 in the AP standings this week, and Kelso just made its debut at number 8. So I think it'll be a good game. my problem is I have no clue what to expect from Kelsey. Now, the philosophy, the fundamentals, I know will all be there. They're a talented team. They have not been tested one lick this year.
Right.
So I have no clue, I think Mountain View's a really good team, and they've had a couple tests this season where you can say, okay, they were within a score of Union,
Mm-hmm.
But I could see Kelsey come out and dominate the lines. I could see Kelsey's defense come out on fire and not allow Mountain View to get anything. I could see Kelsey's offense struggling to gain yardage. I could see a lot of different things happen because I don't know what Kelsey brings to the table against elite teams.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And that's nothing against Kelsey. We haven't seen it.
Mountain View's had kind of the same problem as far as, hey, you play certain teams that just aren't very good, and you get scores like 62-0, I think was the score a couple of weeks ago for Mountain View. And, so I think really what it's going to come down to is who's going to deal with adversity better. I really think that's all it's going to amount to.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, at least we know there's been plenty of trauma the last couple of years. Yeah. 2 years ago, Mountain View returns the opening kickoff 89 yards. Coincidentally, it was Union's Darian Chase doing that. But, to the house on the opening kickoff and just kind of made a statement. Mountain View gets out to a couple score lead in the first half, and then Kelsey kind of makes a game of it in the second half, but a little too little too late. You're down in Vancouver last year for that. That was an exciting one.
Yeah.
Recap that one a little bit.
Overtime game. Went to not a Kentucky tiebreaker. Kansas, yeah.
No, they're all the same.
Yeah. 20-0 country, right? Obviously, Kentucky's got an advantage with fried chicken and bourbon, but it went to overtime. That right there, I think, says it all.
Now, Hoggett wasn't there last year.
That's the other thing. Hoggett was injured, and they had from week 3 to I believe it was week 8 at that point. They were in this period of revamping the offense a little bit, tweaking things here and there. They had design quarterbacks runs, probably made up 20% of the offensive play calls, I'd say. This year they have a lot of different things they can do. Obviously, barring injury, where Kelsey's really improved this year too is along the line, both offense and defense. And so, Mountain View, someone down south a couple weeks ago told me, hey, if Mountain View was a 7.5 last year, they're a 9.5 this year. And Kelsey, I think, especially along the offensive and defensive lines, are the same way. So, even though Mountain View's been ranked about the better portion of the season, I think it's going to be a very good game.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the line play for Kelsey, right? They have to dominate the trenches to win this game,
right?
And they can't. They have to get in the backfield. They have to up front, give Webb some space. And the good news for Kelsey is it sounds like they're finally getting fully healthy. Obviously, a week against Fort Vancouver kind of helps with that. You got to see Josh Webb sit, rest a little bit of a sore heel. You get a lot of guys in and experience, and I think that's really bolstered Kelsey's depth this season.
Yeah.
So I think you have some guys. I think Kelsey's going to be the fresher team overall throughout the game.
Right.
They're going to be able to rotate some bodies in there. They're going to be able to get some guys who have played a lot of ball this year, some opportunities. And I really just think it comes down to controlling the line of scrimmage for Kelsey. I think you can't keep up with some of Mountain View's skill guys, but if they can just get some time for Webb to run and establish a run, and then on defense make sure that they're getting some penetration, I think it could make for a long day for Mountain View.
I agree. And the one thing, if I'm a Mountain View coach, I'm having trouble finding holes in the Kelsey roster, figuring out where they weak. And so
yeah, I mean they've really impressed me this season, Kelsey. And I know we talk about they haven't been tested, but there's been a lot of guys that have stepped up into some pretty big shoes to fill. I mean, you have Josh Webb, and I think they get Gage Bloomfeld back this week, and Seth Sotheby's been awesome.
Kid's been
Riley Noah, of course, is Riley Noah. So you have a really good linebacking crew, and you had to kind of question where they'd be at with the loss of Bryce Miller and a couple other guys in there. They've really done a good job. That whole coaching staff has really been on top of it this year. So you got to tip your hat to them. I expect it to be a great game. I hope it's as good as the game I covered last week when Rainier beat Amity 60-54 in overtime. Now, we were talking this back at the office about why this was such a good game. There was no chippiness. There was no extracurriculars. There was only 6 penalties in the whole game, and only like 2 of them had any impact whatsoever on the actual run of play. A lot of them were, there was a offside penalty when the Rainier was already on the 1-yard line. So you move it half a yard forward, they're going to score anyway, type of thing. Now, I know people will say there's no defense, but I don't think you could, out of the Diesel and out of Amity's wing T, neither team was able to make a stop, because unless you have a holding penalty, they're getting 3 yards of play. So I don't really blame the defenses. There's not much they can do. But that was just an epic game for me. It's one of the best games I've ever seen. So I was thinking, what makes a game memorable for you? When you look back on all the football games you've watched, what makes a game stand out over time?
One, I want swagger. If teams are playing with confidence and playing with swagger and showing it after the play's over a little bit in a, not like you said, not in a chippy way, but just kind of you saunter back to the huddle and you got a smile on your face.
Right.
So that's number one. I think number two, and maybe this should be number one, but for this conversation as an observer, number two is can a team dominate one side of the line, and those are the 2 big things for me.
I like kind of, you mentioned swagger, because I think a game that stands out to me last year was last year's 2B state championship.
Yeah.
Kalama played with swagger.
Yeah.
There was a certain bravado about it, and it wasn't in a malicious or a egotistical way. It was, we're good and we know it, and we're going to have fun playing it, right? And that's kind of why a lot of people, I think, fell in love with the Seahawks in the Richard Sherman and Legion of Boom era, right? Is they played with a certain bravado, and I know you're a 49ers fan, so you probably don't like that, but...
Did you have a matchup a weak wide receiver like Crabtree against whatever again?
But there was a certain bravado that came with it, and it made some of those games... I mean, right there, you talk about the Thanksgiving Day game, you talk about the NFC Championship game. There are certain moments that stand out because that swagger. So I never thought about it, but there is a certain kind of quality that comes with that.
Yeah, I guess I'll add a number 3 is you can't continuously throw fades to the same receiver in the back of the end zone every time you need a play to happen.
As they say,
when it never works.
As they say, a fade works 10% of the time, every time. To be fair, it's still better than throwing a slant to your worst receiver in the Super Bowl on the 1-yard line.
At least that they threw slants all season.
Yeah, but not to your worst receiver. I mean, I know you don't expect it, but it'd be like if a high school coach put in a 3rd string guy and go, they never think they're never gonna think we run it with him, and then he fumbles the ball and you go, hey, I wonder why he was the 3rd string guy.
Yeah, well, at least see in that situation, I think they should have used Lynch. At least I understand the call. Throwing back shoulder fades to Crabtree all the time and it never works is ridiculous. Anyway.
But Malcolm Butler got paid for it, so.
Well, we got it. Yes, he did.
So, good job, New England. How long are we on this?
I don't know. I'm trying to look in the window to see the reflection.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll end it there. That's fine. I think we talked about plenty of football. Like I said, there's some big stuff coming up. We'll talk about more football. Oh, I should get your take. There's another big game this week. It's down in Vancouver. But Woodland versus Columbia River. Who do you think has the edge in that one? That's obviously kind of for the 2nd seed in the GSHL.
I think Woodland does.
You think Woodland has the edge over River?
After seeing River last week, yeah, I think River plays with it's not kind of like last week. So against Arlong, they're showboating to start. The announcement comes out 2 times. Hey, can you come out and take the field, please? They don't. When they do come out, they're beating their chest and stuff like that against the 0-7 football team.
They were 0-6.
0-6.
To be fair.
Yeah, ran up the score. It wasn't really a close game, but it was a lot closer than the score says. River scored 3 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes. And so anyway, when I just don't see them playing. Let me put it this way. I think Woodland is a substantially better team than Mark Morris is. It was a close game between Mark Morris and River. Woodland is probably better in every facet of the game, aside from their kicking game. And so, yeah, I think Woodland takes this by a touchdown or 2.
And it's a big one because the 3 seed plays Tumwater. So it's a big one.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You'd much rather have Black Hills or WF West than Tumwater, I'd tell you that much.
No, I'll tell you, Woodland wants another crack at WF West too.
Yeah, and I forget if Black Hills and WF West have played this year, but I know it'll be them 2 and 3. Black Hills has got a really solid group this year. But yeah, you don't want to go up to Tumwater District Stadium and play Tumwater. You just don't want to do it. So yeah, that's a big game. You can't afford really to lose that one, or you're looking at an early playoff exit.
Mm-hmm.
So so we'll jump into that interview with Kelsey Bern and Maddie Wolff of RA Long Soccer, and we will see you next week to break down Week 9 action, which I'm sure will have plenty of storylines as well. So we will see you next week. That's all for us.
All right, I'm here with Maddie Wolff, Kelsey Bern, RA Long Soccer. Both seniors, both having pretty good seasons, and you guys both had good seasons last year also. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess to start, just talk to us about kind of the season. And I know it hasn't gone. It's weird because it's gone well in a lot of ways,
Right.
but not the standards.
Right.
How's that been for you guys?
So I think we suffered from a lot of injuries and lack of personnel. Like, our bench has not been super deep with personnel. I think we've struggled with sickness as well.
I don't think there's been a girl on this team that hasn't been injured at some point.
We definitely have had low numbers and suffered from numbers. That was a lot of what we suffered from. But I think all of us have just been working really hard and trying to do our best with what we have, and I think we're trying to honor how much everyone's working to support the team, no matter the outcome. No matter the outcome.
It's a little disappointing because, coming into it, we have this many seniors, and we were expected to be at the top of our league, and then it just kind of went downhill. But for what it's worth, we have fun at practices. This is the most fun I've had playing soccer at high school in a really long time. And as far as my senior season goes, I know the record doesn't show how great it's been, but I've personally enjoyed it a lot more than I have in a long time.
And I think we've been trying to focus on having fun, especially because it's our last season, but because we've grown so close over the years that we're just more of a family. It didn't matter what our standings were this season, it was about making the best of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I want to say it was 5 losses of 1 goal.
Yeah, it was hard to not
definitely
get down
away
on yourself.
upset.
Yeah, definitely upsetting.
Okay. And you were saying the last 10 minutes was kind of
Deal breaker.
Yeah. Each
Deal
game,
breaker.
last 10 minutes.
Deal breaker.
Okay. Was that? Do you think that was just being tired, or was there anything else to it?
Things just didn't pan out. I think tired, as Wallace says, tired legs make stupid decisions.
Yep.
So I think that was probably a factor, but I think it was more so that it just kind of happened, and then we're like, well, crap, what are we supposed to do now? And
A lot of them, some of them were just pass goals. They're not a big play. Sometimes they just get away from us, and it just happens. I don't even know how to explain it. Tired legs do make bad decisions, but I think the mind also can kind of wander if you're too tired too. Dehydration or tiredness.
I'll do it. I think running around for even if you're in shape, running around for 70 minutes, 60 minutes, it messes with your head. It does for me anyway. It's at the trampoline. I got a 4-year-old. I was at the trampoline place the other day, and 10 minutes of that, I was like,
You're like, whew.
like I'm trying to say I'm tired, but I can't do it. It's a true story. Okay. How have you guys kind of overcome, get to the next game and trying to flush that out of your mind? Has that been tough, or what have you guys done?
I think like the personalities on this team, we're more focused on, hey, let's get to our next game. Let's see what we can do this practice to enjoy ourselves but still get stuff done and kind of wipe away all the being upset over the last loss.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of seniority that helps with not necessarily bad attitudes, but just upsetness about losing and stuff. I think we just wipe it away and just say, hey, let's put one foot in front of another and move on. The next game's a new one, kind of thing.
Definitely having the seniors that know how to deal with the loss and move past it helps.
We push for happiness rather than struggle, you know?
Okay. And how about the transition from one coach to another in your senior year? Was that, you guys, for the most part, did a lot of things in a similar fashion as last year, right? Is that?
We got a new lineup and different personnel in different positions, and that was the main difference that we tried and ran with. And preseason it worked well. Our first 2 games it worked well, and so we were sticking with it, and Wallace allows us to shift our positioning a little bit more. So it's more so new coach, new ideas, but still same personnel trying to accomplish it.
Yeah, he made it really easy just because he's a very calm human being. So
very relaxed.
He did a lot of experimenting in the first part. We did some summer tournaments, just kind of play it out, see who could be there and see new positions, but he's made it fairly easy to change and not necessarily change, but evolve and kind of go into this new positioning and new personnel and just work into it.
All right. And as far as the league, how much do you think the league changed from last year to this year?
Pretty big difference.
Yeah.
There hasn't, for us, there hasn't really been this team is so much better. Normally it's Columbia River and Hawkinson, which they're the top teams
and
still,
bigger schools too.
But it hasn't been they're just absolutely creaming everyone kind of deal as it has been in the past.
Right.
I feel like our league has always been kind of you never know what's going to happen. This team could be this team, or this team could be this team. Or you make a prediction and it totally goes the opposite route.
Yeah.
I just feel like our league is so unpredictable. Anyone could win. Because every team has a bad day or a good day, and
every team has a lot of good players who play club, and so.
Right.
And I think the senior class leaving last year definitely made a difference too. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair. I think after the Civil War, the first Civil War, I asked Taylor and I asked Mark Morris's coach, Eric Maxey, hey, is that it looks like in the standings that the gap is closing between Vancouver and up here, and both said, it's not, there's still Hawkinson, still obviously at the top, and so, but it's not blowout city like it had been.
I think a lot, at least at our school, a lot more players have been, or this team in particular, drive down to Vancouver to go play club. Both of us do.
Yeah,
I know a few of the other seniors have done that too.
Okay. How much of a difference do you feel like club makes?
It makes the world a
huge difference.
Just constant touches on the ball, constant playing, different coaching styles. It makes more rounded players that know a broad range of soccer stuff.
Especially with the well-rounded, you get to play with different players and different personalities. You kind of learn to work with different people, and the technique, crazy. If you're touching a ball that much all week through months, it makes a world of difference, especially in the high school scene.
Okay.
The more you can get a touch on the ball, the better your first touch is going to be, the better the second touch is going to be.
Better the communication is going to be, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you get a feel for, because I'm sure you're playing against the same girls you guys are when the high school season goes around in club, do you also have a better feel of, hey, this person likes to do this, or this person struggles with this and is good at this.
Do you mean like knowing your opponent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
In 2 words, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I know several girls that I've played against, and I know where they're going to be and all that, and they also know me, so I get marked up a little tighter sometimes.
She knows more than I do because I usually play like out of state. The one person that was on my team was Abby Anderson, who is playing at SU right now, but we play in like a different league, so a lot of the girls we play with, we've seen before, we played against, but they're not completely around.
Okay. She goes farther, I stay a little bit more local.
Okay.
It's different, but not at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Has this been being new to you guys' senior year? Is this year been any different as far as the feeling, the in-game emotions go?
I think there's a lot more freedom to move the ball in different places. The midfield sometimes has a little issue keeping possession, and so it's hard to work from a midfield when we don't have possession. But when we do gain the possession, it works really well.
Okay.
So that's been nice, and having girls that know where to look for a ball helps.
Okay.
I think everyone's been moved around so many times that anything can happen. I mean, I believe in the girls and their touch and their idea on the field, and I think we can do anything we set our mind to, but I think the fact that our personnel is just so different that if we change in our lineup even, we can make a difference and score. And the feeling is great because I think it's a little bittersweet for the seniors, but I think it's great throughout the team because we're just so much closer than we've ever been.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The next 3 games you guys have against opponents, I mean, you guys have to make the postseason. It's still possible. A few things have to break you guys' way. But I guess on the plus side, you have Hawkinson, Ridgefield, and Morris, I believe, for your final 3 games. All teams that if you knock off, it gives you a little bit better chance to make the postseason still. What's the mood heading into the final? 10 games, I guess it means.
Finish strong.
Yeah.
That's the main
Suck it up,
movement.
finish strong, let's do this.
I don't care if you're sick.
Yeah.
I want you to be playing.
Let's play.
Or at least trying to play,
Yeah.
I think hard work is a big statement on our team is like, if we work hard, we're going to be okay. We're going to do our best and do whatever we can,
All right. And I'm sure you're preaching the same, that's big.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Our seniors especially. Like, come on, we're not going out with a bang. Like, without a bang.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the goal? You guys have a goal scored goal differential objective? Or?
I haven't looked at our stats recently.
Okay. No, I mean, do you have an objective over the next 3 games as far as, hey, I'm going to score 4 goals, or I'm going to score?
I think all of us.
I think all of us are just like,
Right.
hey, let's go out and score.
Yeah.
Like, my goal is always 1 goal a game, at least 1 goal a game.
Yeah. And I try, but I either play midfield or forward, and I usually end up assisting a lot more. But I definitely am like, come on, just one. I just want one. Every game, that's my goal. Is like, just need one.
I think every player goes out like, I want a goal this game.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's our whole offense. They're like, come on, we just need one. We just need one. It's like the from the other type of idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then final game of the season against Morris, having played them already this year and having it end in the fashion they did you guys have added fire for that one at all? Or?
Definitely.
It's a Civil War game. Everyone's already fired up, but definitely losing that game in a golden goal situation.
We were just so frustrated. It was just not. So many emotions played through our whole team.
Yeah.
We were like, this is not okay. Okay, it's like losing against penalty kicks.
Yeah.
Like it's a golden goal, so you're in overtime. Everyone's on edge. Everyone's stressed. And it was just a bundle of emotions you can't even describe.
They're just getting there, 72nd,
Yeah,
73rd minute. Like I was saying before we hit record, I kind of felt like it was over the way everything was moving.
It just, things changed in a split second. You can't help it, but things just take a turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you try to control that, but
Okay, and then my last question, as far as the fun level this season, has it been, as seniors, has this been, I know going to state probably tops it. I'll just put that out there. I'm sure it tops everything. But, how much fun have you guys had this year?
By far the most fun I've had playing
Incredible.
high school soccer.
Okay.
I love these girls.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Okay.
It's just crazy.
There's so many personalities, and you wouldn't think the personalities would mesh at all, but
they do.
They definitely do.
Okay.
In a weird,
Yeah.
kind of way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you the next 3 games. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Awesome. All right. That's it. Thanks, guys.